So we're talking today about a lot of things that engage learners, and in particular this effective teaching, but now it's the mentor's job to prepare for that observation. So there is an observation and feedback cycle. It's clinical supervision. Some of that will be in your textbook, your mentoring book, but I'd like Lyman to just kind of take us through the key points as a mentor prepares to go into a classroom. But there's something to do before that, which is called the pre-conference.
Right. And I'm going to be a very simple person think about these things. I'm not going to use clinical supervision language, even though I've taught it and used it and everything else. But I want to have a quick conversation with the teacher before we begin, so I can get a sense of what the teacher's plan is, depending upon where I might work or what is the arrangement. It'd be nice to see a written lesson plan in advance. Sometimes at the college setting, they have to email them to us, or I work in one school system where students have to send in their essential learning questions to their department head in advance of the day electronically, so that person can walk in and see it. But what is it? What am I going to see? What would you like me to look for? Back to where we were the last time I was in. How are you doing on whatever it is, learning students' names, or or moving around the room? What strategy? I work in one school where they actually tape the floor, so that beginning teacher will be reminded, go stand here, go stand here, just like you might on a stage at a play.
Yes, as a routine.
Yes, I thought that. That was
interesting.
That was good, because it really did kind of connect people to that notion of proximity. The 8-foot rule. The 8-foot rule is and sometimes when I go into classrooms, I actually do set out the tape.
Okay, so tell us about this. What's this
sometimes you use the term, I don't know if you use it in your book, but proximity. But really, for me, it's the 8-foot rule.
Okay.
Be within 8 feet of your students. And I don't know if you know Fred Jones, Tools for Teachers.
Yes.
Fred Jones, it's a free website, but Tools for Teachers, in a book that's very much like the Harry Wong book, even though he's from California, so it's not so much used in New England. What he would say is, in the mind of this is profiling, is probably not a good thing. In the mind of a 14-year-old boy, there's a red, green, yellow stoplight. And so if you're within 8 feet, the stoplight in the person's head is red. I better not do anything. From 8 to 14 feet, it's yellow. Can I get away with this? Should I pay attention? Can I talk to my friend? Can I email? Text, whatever it is. And then beyond 14 feet, the stoplight color is green. I can do whatever I want. So that's his sort of simple visual way of reminding teachers we need to be close to our kids. And so lots of times in a classroom, we'll set out the rule. I do this on my very first day of teaching in any class I teach in college, just because I want to be reminded what 8 feet looks like, in the sense of being close to students. I want to do that. So what does that mean? It means either and then, there's a nice school around here that uses the phrase, every student in our school gets a front row seat. Well,
because if the teacher's
how does that
moving
happen?
around.
If you can move the furniture, maybe it can happen. If you can't, or U-shape or whatever it is, but if you can't, then it's up to the teacher to move around.
So that actually brings me to something a mentor can tell the new teacher, this is what I'm going to be looking for. When I come in, I'm looking for the 8-foot. This is what the 8-foot rule means to me. That you're close to your students. I'm explaining it to you, and you show it. Another one of my colleagues is very interested in calling boys and girls equally. I think in the pre-conference, what should happen is that the mentor needs to disclose what are the meaningful observations that are going to come up. Instead of at the post-conference saying you didn't do this or you didn't do that. Not that that is the way we would run our post-conference.
Should be no surprises.
No surprises, because the new teacher should know.
And for me, it's 2 parts to that. It's what would you like me to look at or focus on, and maybe I already have the tool, or we can create the tool right there. How will we look at this? But that's not really enough for me that we focus on just that one thing, because there are some important practices that from that list, or from lots of different kinds of lists, that I want to see happen. So I'm not just going to do what you want me to do. I'm going to do more than that.
So just to kind of summarize a little, the mentor would have a pre-conference where the mentor and the new teacher discuss what's going to happen, what kind of tool is going to be used. There's not going to be any surprises. The mentor is going to share their pet things to observe for, so that the new teacher won't be surprised. And also the mentor will be using the rubric and looking at the standards and indicators, because effective teaching is seen through many different kinds of lenses, but one that's very important right now is how is that principal going to come in, and that would all be part of the pre-conference. The other thing that I want to remind everyone is set a date for the post-conference, because the new teacher gets very anxious after someone's in their room,
Yes.
that they want to hear what happened, what did you think, was I good, and there's a lot of anxiety. So how do
Absolutely.
you
Well-
handle the post-conference? I know we've talked about the data collection,
Yes.
but then you have to
things.
give the feedback, or even if it's
Yes.
non-judgmental, it still
It's
is
important.
nerve-wracking.
Before I leave the classroom the day of the observation, I'm going to say something to the teacher. It's going to be thank you. It's going to be
Okay.
something that hopefully eliminates some of that anxiety. What did they think? What did they do? And I'm not going to make
Yes.
statements that aren't going to be part of the follow-up. I'm not going to say, necessarily you did a fabulous job if I'm not really
Right.
prepared to have that be the conversation, the focus of the post-observation conference. But I am going to say something, because when you walk out of the room, that person's left, they're going, did they like it? Did they not like it? Are they mad at me? And
Yes.
should I pack,
So
all that sort of stuff.
something.
So I'm going to say something. And then I'm going to go away and sort of do my look at my notes, look at my tools, try to figure out what do I really want to focus on. And then for me, I'm going to do my post-observation conference, my feedback conference, in a sort of a formatted way. So I brought
Right.
that today.
So let's see
All right.
so
And-
let's talk about that, because is that
Yes.
your clothesline, your
This is my
post-observation?
Yes, I just saw a book
conference.
title in the Stenhouse catalog this week. It was Engaging the I Generation, but it's EYE. I've never really seen that
Oh.
book before, Engaging the EYE Generation. I am a visual learner, I know I am. I need visuals, I need it simple.
Right.
And so this is my thinking
Okay.
forever about how to provide feedback, how to help people think about
Okay,
feedback.
okay.
So this is me. I'm always going to begin with the thank you. I'm going to begin with a thank you. We'll see what this is going to hold up. I guess it
Okay.
is. Yahoo. I'm going to next provide commendations. I'm providing commendations. Let's see if this is going to continue to hold up. I guess it
Ooh.
is. Let's just turn it over, since the staple looks like it's not there.
So tell me a little about a commendation. How do you
Okay.
think about your commendations?
So, do you know Glenn Latham, Utah State University? He used to talk about the rule of 8.
Yes.
8 positives before 1 negative.
Oh, yes, I have read that.
And he uses that in terms of,
So-
whenever he's working. And I'm not saying you need to have 8 commendations, but find some commendations.
More commendations
Yes.
than
And
recommendations.
If you think about, so the positives first, and there are always positives as people work, how hard they
Mhm.
work, their
Mhm.
love of the content. I mean,
Okay,
you can find commendations.
I like that.
Sometimes in, a supervision course, or a mentoring course, we look at the Ferris Bueller tape,
Yes,
the teacher,
yes.
Ben Stein, find a commendation, find one. And it is, he loves the subject.
Yes, yes.
He has
And we
good
know,
knowledge.
as mentors and teachers ourselves, that sometimes is difficult.
It's a
But
challenge.
we can do it. I like your name. I like the way you're
Yes,
dressed today.
exactly. And then for me, it's ask a question.
Okay,
It's gonna move this out of the way. It's ask a question. Carolyn Downey, do you know Carolyn
Yes.
Downey? She's the walkthrough
yes.
guru. She would always say she uses the phrase, the best gift we can give a teacher is a question about their practice. And it's
So
with,
give me a sample. So
Well-
something like, tell me why you did that, or
tell
why
me-
did you
yeah,
call on?
I'm curious at that point
Okay.
in the lesson, or, with the observation tools, it's pretty
Yes.
easy. Okay, so I'm looking at the seating chart, and I'm seeing that you use 3 names. Can we talk about this? What do you think about this? What does the
Okay.
data say?
To engage the novice in the post-conference, so they're talking
Yes.
too.
Absolutely.
Okay,
They're
I like
talking,
that.
they're reflecting on their practice. I'd like to believe, and I think it is reflection equals ownership. That's my little
I
the
like
only
it.
math I know. But
Yes.
reflection equals ownership.
I like that. And that engages the novice teacher because you're asking a question.
I'm asking a question, and this is very hard. It's hard to find a question that doesn't sound like a judgment.
Yes.
Why did you do that? You
Yes.
don't. You know, that's not what this is a legitimate question, thinking about practice, thinking about teacher practice. So then we get to the next steps. And for me, this might be right for you, I'm not sure, but the 3 R's, the notion of the 3
Yeah.
R's, if I'm a mentor, do I have a reflective suggestion? Do I have a recommendation? Or every now and then I have a requirement? And
Yes.
it might be, you know, I mean, there are lots of,
Yes.
you know, that teacher that sends the kids out to the car to get their stuff when you don't do that, or puts the student in the hallway, or sends the student, tells the student to leave the room, you know, because whatever. Sometimes there are requirements, not that many for a mentor, but things that just need to be. But
Yes.
generally speaking, we're asking the questions, we're asking for reflection, or we might be making a recommendation. I don't want. It's back to that judgment
Yes.
thing. So often we jump to judgments. You should have
Yes.
done this.
Yes.
Well, wait a minute. That's the way I would do it. It may not even be good practice for all I know, and then I always end with the thank you. So
I
this
love
is,
it. So
this
this
is-
is your clothesline
yes, and I do,
post-conference
this is my post-conference.
agenda.
And this will lead us to a piece of what we do in the pre-conference. So I'm going to go away from this meeting. I'm going to find some resources if I can. I'm going to find some samples, find a good lesson that does whatever it is you're talking about, or some strategies for the openers, because there are hundreds of them. And so I'm going to do some work in between. But then at the pre-observation conference, we'll come right back to this. I better come back to this. We don't start fresh. We start with.
You build.
We
So
build
you're
on.
building. I love this.
So
It's
that's
awesome.
my clothesline.
I love it. I love your clothesline. These are great ideas. Mentors watching the video, you're going to have a lot of these tools in your toolkit now that you can use. As we wind down and close this out, I'm going to just ask a last question.
Sure.
What advice do you have for a mentor who is a first time observing a new teacher? What advice for them that they've never done it before?
I'm a William Glasser believer, and so William Glasser would say to me, we're all doing the best we can. We'll do better or different, whatever the issue is. As when I do sometimes family conferences, parent conferences, I have to say to myself, this person is doing the best they can. They will do better and different with new and better information. And the same as for a beginning teacher. And so this is my little quote built off of that idea, but your beginner is doing the best they can. They will do better and different with new and better ideas, questions, support. That's our job. That's our job as a mentor, to
help
provide
them.
that new, better, different kind of resources, a way of thinking about
And that would be the same for the mentor to say to them, this is your first time observing.
Yes,
Don't be nervous. Pick one tool, like you said. Don't
Yes.
try to watch everything.
that's right.
Pick one thing that the new teacher is thinking about, and maybe one thing that shows up for you, and to just keep doing it. So I want to thank you. Related to the homework and the resources, I just want to highlight a couple of questions that mentors ask me in the class. Sometimes they say, I don't have time. I wish I had the luxury of going in. We can't schedule, and as a principal, you probably know this, time for me to actually go in and observe face to face. So I have a couple of tips for you, and you may jump in if you have some others.
Sure.
One is that you can have your new teacher, novice teacher, videotape his or her classroom practice. And I have actually used this technique, and it works quite well. You take some time after school, you watch the tape together, but to stick with the data with dignity and non-judgmental, you as a supervisor, mentor, observer, co-observer, would just ask questions. Because you weren't there, you don't have the whole context, and you can have the luxury on videotape of stopping and saying, so tell me, explain why you were doing this. And what happened there? And tell me what your thinking was, and why did you choose to open the class that way? So there are an abundance of questions that you can still do a supervisory visit through videotape. The other shows up in your mentoring and your first year matters book, and we really need to be encouraging our new teachers to observe themselves in that reflective practice. So observing yourself through active listening, we're encouraging new teachers to use their iPhones or tape recorders, if they still exist, and just put it on your desk. And then play it back at the end of the day and actually listen to yourself. How were you talking? How many students' names did you call out? Make the tag, the little chart for yourself as a teacher. The mentor could model that in your own classroom and show, well, look, I did this and I noticed I didn't call in 5 students. I need to be more vigilant. Having a mentor do some of the same tools, or having the new teacher come into the mentor's classroom using some of these tools so they can practice, is also a very collegial way to minimize anxiety. So you'll find the tools in your First Year Matter book, and you'll also find that you may want to do the tape recorder, the videotape, and that final preparation for that principal's observation, because the new teachers are most nervous about getting rehired and passing their evaluation. So observation and feedback and reflection all are very high stakes. So Lyman, you've got the last word.
Oh, well.
What do you have
Quick
for
follow-up
us?
to what you said. The other thing that I want to do is ask students,
Fabulous.
Metacognition. If I want kids to think about their thinking,
I love
I
it.
need to,
Love it.
that notion of the think aloud, or the think aloud
Yes.
corner. What I will be doing in my 40-something year of teaching, but when I start classes, I will give students cards with time in them, because I'm a big believer in the 10 and 2 or the 9 and 3 or the short bursts, short chunks, brain based. And so I'm going to ask them to tell me when I've taught, when 10 minutes is up. I want to build that in for myself, to get used to the time. I will ask kids oftentimes to keep the chart, there's no reason why they can't keep the name chart or any of some of these, kind of basic tools, because we're in this together. We're trying to create that community of learning. I'm part of that. We're continuous improvement. Nobody does, as I learn from you every time I talk to you, I learn from your material. We're all in this together. We're not judges, we're not finished products, we're never finished. So it's a continuous improvement opportunity for me.
I love that you integrated the students' perspectives. We have been talking about that in class, and we have the student survey tool that we use with the new teacher and the side-by-side. Right. But what you just shared with me as we continue to learn is the students can be interactive partners as it's going on. They don't have to just be surveying at the end of the semester saying this is how my teacher can improve. They can hold up the 10-minute card, or they can remind people about the exit survey. They can be part of effective teaching because they want their novice teachers to be effective. So this has been a great guest speaker session. Thank you, Lyman, for making the time to be here, and thank you all for listening, and we'll get all the resources up for you as soon as possible. Thanks.